What's good, everyone? Welcome back to My First Kicks. This is episode 133, and this week I welcome Cris Rodriguez to the podcast. He is part owner of Syndicate out in LA. He also has a podcast called the Store Credit Pod. I don't know if you've seen that around, but definitely cool to get him on the podcast. So shout out to Ariane for hooking this up because after his episode, Cris showed his support. So I've hit up Cris on TikTok like a while ago to try to get this together myself. So I had to ask for the oop, and it was a fun episode. Recorded this, and immediately after was just hyped because Cris is super motivational and like learning about the starting of just his career onto where he is now is super inspirational. And I mean, after this episode, you'll understand what I'm saying, but he's going to keep going. And it was just very cool. I can't wait to be out in LA to actually visit the store and say what up to him physically. Hopefully, I'll do that in November. So, you know, just shout out to everybody who's listened so far 133 episodes. And on to where you can find Cris. You can find him on all social medias as CRSRDRGUEZ. Follow his and listen to his podcast, Store Credit Pod. And check out Syndicate whenever you're in LA, or if you are in LA or LA listener, hit it up. It's in Chinatown, he said. And they always doing like really cool stuff to make sure that there's a community around the store. And I love that because we don't really get a lot of that. I mean, I talk about District 1 a little bit on here, and he also worked for District 1, and District 1's really cool. Shout out to Frozen for taking me there one day and seeing what it's like down there. I mean, it's a madhouse. Going to a like I'm so used to going to empty resale stores, and that one was packed. It was a line out the door. And I mean, they also do those steals every week. So I mean, it's just interesting. Like stores that actually try to build community with giving steals, with doing cool like activations on the internet and social media. Like it hits different, but it's not, to me, it's not a sneaker store. So you get a little bit, it's like you give and you get a little bit, but it's just this just being able to build a community around it is just really dope because I like to build communities, like building a community around this podcast. So shout out to everyone who hits up those stores, and shout out to, if you are a listener that goes to Syndicate, shout out to you. Definitely cop their merch. It's always fire. And you know where to find me. I am Who Is Haas on all social medias. Check out the podcast on social medias at My First Kicks Pod. And if you're on YouTube, it's My First Kicks. If you're on TikTok, it's My First Kicks. And if you have a My First Kicks story, hit me up, myfirstkickspod@gmail.com. If you have any suggestion for guests you want to hear in this interview format, send that to the email as well, or to the DMs. I am always reading, watching, and listening from afar. So on to this week's guest, Cris Rodriguez. But before we jump into this episode, I want to talk to you about Drops and Collect by Soul Savvy. With Drops and Collect, you are able to stay ahead of the game. Using Drops, you can enter raffles and set alerts for any restocks. Well, I can't stop it anyway. Whatever. Before we jump into the episode, I want to talk to you about Drops and Collect by Soul Savvy. With Drops and Collect, you'll be able to stay ahead of the game. Using Drops, you can enter raffles and set alarms for any restocks. It would also help you to never miss a release ever again. I mean, my notifications on, and every morning my notifications go crazy. It's right before 10 o'clock. And after you cop some fresh kicks, use Collect to manage your collection. I'm still in the process of adding my kicks. I mean, I have a ton, but it's fine. But what's cool about Collect is that you can also make trades with no fees if you're a current member. But don't worry, if you aren't a member, You just have to pay a flat rate of $8. Now, how do you get these apps? Just use the links in the description of this podcast. Download these apps and grow your collection by also helping the podcast. That's right. Just use the links in the description and start expanding your collection today. Hey, Chris, welcome to the podcast.
What's up, man? How are you doing?
Nah, man, yo, it's an honor having you on. Like I've been following you for a while. I mean, since Syndicate started going crazy on IG, and then you made your own separate,
Yeah,
page. I was like, I gotta follow you, and you be giving away some steals, man. I'm like some crazy heat just for steals, man.
yeah, man. I mean, I think it's the community bought in, so it's like it's not just us; it's the community too. I think it's an extension of how like the clientele, even just the good friends that we've made throughout the store.
Hmm.
Um, Essentially, they trust us with what we're doing, and then when they see it posted, like, oh shit, they didn't mark it up 40, 50%. They fucking only marked it up 20%, 15%, something
Hmm.
small. But yeah, it's shout out to the community. It's not just us.
No, yeah, facts, facts. And for people who aren't familiar with you, how about you introduce yourself?
All right, well, I'm Chris. I'm part owner of Syndicate Los Angeles. You can find us in Chinatown, 969 North Hill Street.
Mhm.
My personal Instagram is CRSRDRGUEZ. It's just Christian Rodriguez, abbreviated as small as it can get, and
Mhm.
approved on Instagram. And I'm just, I would say, a normal sneakerhead, trying to continue pushing the culture forward.
No, yeah, I mean, big facts. I think you guys do something that's not like being like a pariah in the culture, which is a lot of these other resale shops. I mean, I don't want to name any, but I know there's some that's by me that just be like, oh, they're just trying to make money right here and not even try to have like a conversation about sneakers when I'm in the store. So yeah.
No, yeah, I think I treat our that we have the museum hat, which is one of our logos, and I feel like the Syndicate Museum is like you come into the store and there's shoes are like art history. Every shoe has a story to tell. Well, most of them, I would say. There's some
Hmm.
that Nike just puts out that they don't care, but everything has a story to tell, I would say. And then even like the stuff that we have hanging up on the walls, the case, like everything there was like hand essentially just like hand put there, just like, all right, this is gonna go here because of this is gonna go there because of that. So I feel like I want people to come in and feel appreciated about a culture that they love, because some stores don't make you feel appreciated, and I think
Yeah.
that's our number one goal there.
Yeah, I mean, I love it, love it. But you're here to answer the question that I ask every guest every week, and that is, what's your first kicks? What's that first pair of sneakers you absolutely needed to have?
I think the first one was it was funny. Like I already had Jordans, but it was just like through basketball. It
Hmm.
wasn't nothing like, oh, I'm into like streetwear. I'm into sneaker collecting. I just would play basketball, and I would have at that point like Huaraches, Jordans, and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And I remember I would keep up with Riff Los Angeles, and they would always post that steals. And I think that's where like how we continued doing that for Syndicate. But going back to that, it's I remember they posted a Reese Forb Hunter, the
Hmm.
orange with the like camo everywhere.
Hmm.
I think they posted it for, if I'm correct, no more than $120. No more than $120.
Wow.
Um, and I remember I told Manny, I was just like, yo, like we have to head down there. And I was just like, you know what? Fuck that. I'm gonna order it because it was available online.
Uh-huh.
And Riff is literally like 10, 15 minutes for me. But I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna order it just to not get beat up. But obviously at that point I probably would have got it, because there wasn't the hype wasn't there that real. But that I think that was the first shoe that I was just like, I have to have this. Like just because at that point we were looking at, I would say the Grail SBs were anywhere from like the solid ones were like 350, but then the Grails like pigeons were only like 9 to 1,000 at that point,
Jeez.
which is crazy, a crazy time.
Yeah.
But so it's for me being, I think, a ninth grader, a freshman in high school, $120 is a lot. So I was just like, you know what? I had this money saved up. I was just like, let's fucking do it. So that was like, I think my first, like, I would say heat pair of shoes. And the
Mhm.
shoe that I literally was just like, all right, I have to have this shoe.
These are the Reese Four blows, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, the pink box.
orange,
Yeah.
the orange with the like the padding, the chenille padding inside. Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure before I read this little synopsis here, the for the listeners to get a little little bit more insight on the shoe. This Dunk Low Pro SB Reese Forbes from the Pink Box era sees Nike SB team rider Reese Forbes delivering a radical departure from his previous wheat and denim colorways, featuring a hunting-inspired design. The low top sports a burlap upper and camo overlays, and bright orange blaze on the swoosh and quilted nylon lining. Zigzag stitching across the uppers adds to the rustic motif, and it is a shoe I've always wanted, but I never been able to get a pair. So it's passed me by at that point now. Like I think that like every single 13 I've ever seen, it has the because if you wear that shoe too much, though, like that like the inside of the toe box just starts opening up.
Oh yeah, always.
Yeah. So I was just like, nah, I guess this is it for me. Like I've never seen a clean pair of 13 or like in a decent price because I'm a SB head like from the jump. So yeah.
Not 13 is tough. I know it. Trust me. I know.
I mean, look, you brought up Riff LA, man. I don't. I was following Riff LA on early, like that was like maybe like my first 100 follows on Instagram because after being on NikeSB.org, I would like I was getting like recommended all these other shops and Riff LA popped up and I was like this place is dope. I want to go to LA. I want to visit this spot, but I mean, it's not around anymore, right?
Oh, it's still there.
Is
Second
it?
Street.
Oh
Second
shit.
Street. Yeah,
I thought I thought it was gone.
no, we send people there every day, and they send people back to us because we're less than a mile away from each other, and
Mhm,
we're in Chinatown, they're in Little Tokyo, so it kind of makes sense. And obviously, we used to work there.
mhm.
But yeah, no, we sent the people all the time. Cool shop. It's funny. One of my friends was just there. He said he was shooting their complex Supreme like interview that they just did that just came out.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was cool. But no, they're still around, good people, all around. I just Jason just hit me up, which is the manager, to save him one of our new Spider-Man tees that drops tomorrow.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I mean, I got yo, help me get a
Yeah,
Spider-Man tee. Yeah,
yeah, me.
yeah, I got you. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm from New York, so like, for me, like the pinnacle of sneaker culture or like SB culture was definitely like Tiffany's dropping out on Fairfax and like hanging around and hearing about hanging out on the Fairfax avenues. But like, what was it for you? When was it like once you got the Reese Forbes, like were you just entrenched in sneaker culture after that?
Yeah, I mean, I was then that's when I started getting into like obviously like Supreme,
Hmm.
DGK skateboard company, the hundreds, Diamond. Diamond was big for us just because of LA.
Hmm.
Nick Diamond had the store. Nick Diamond was big on like supporting the youth and the kids coming by. And at that point, obviously, I was still a kid. And anytime we would come in, they're great customer experience. Sometimes you buy something, he's just like, here you go, here's a free belt or something, something cool.
Wow. Yeah.
So it wasn't like we were camping out too crazy. It was just like, yo, if we had access to it, we'll take it. But if we don't, but I remember like countdown packs were coming out. So me and our homies were like splitting the packs. What else? What else came out that I like Beijing sixes, like all the
Hmm.
Jordans that were coming out, like we couldn't get too many of them again because we didn't have all the money in the world.
Hmm.
But we had to be picky with our releases. So yeah, I just kind of full dived in, and it's an industry that just like learned to appreciate and love. Just cool stuff was going on. Melrose was popping, Fairfax was popping. It was a crazy time in LA.
What was like the rounds? Like, did you have like a set of rounds that you would make?
All right, so we grew up in the southeast of LA and Bell,
Mm.
California, and then Huntington Park, Maywood, all the surrounding areas, southeast LA. We had homies from everywhere, and all our homies. I would say if you were into the streetwear culture, sneaker culture, like there
Hmm.
was only so little of us at that moment, so
Hmm.
we all kind of knew each other. So we would meet up at a bus stop, take the bus to the Blue Line on Florence and pass Holmes, get the Blue Line, go to downtown. Then I think we would get one more train, get off on Wilshire. There's a Carl's Jr. there, Wilshire, Normandy. Take the bus all the
Jesus.
way to take all the bus to Wilshire and Fairfax, and then when we would get off on Wilshire and Fairfax, we would just do that walk, which isn't a small walk from Wilshire and Fairfax to essentially Fairfax and like Rosewood or where
Hmm.
everything's at. So then we would do the whole Fairfax thing. Then we would dive into Melrose, and at that time we would walk all the way to Tokidoki, which was that Japanese store because we
Hmm.
like all the little characters and stuff like that. and Trip Out Tokidoki was next to Round Two when Round Two finally opened in 2015, 14.
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah, Tokidoki was our last stop. So we all would go there with like $40 to our names.
Mm-hmm.
We would be able to get one shirt or one hat, essentially, and
Yeah.
then anything from the dollar menu at like Carl's Jr., Jack in the Box, McDonald's, and then we would go back home. It was a whole day thing because buses in LA transit here sucks.
Yeah. I
Uh,
did. I took it once. I mean, I'll tell you, I was out there my first time in LA, right? I was out there and I decided to take the bus to the train to Long Beach.
yeah.
And it was like the worst thing. I was like, this is the worst experience ever,
Oh
man.
yeah, no, the transit system here, and obviously Uber wasn't a thing. We couldn't drive. But yeah, that was the whole thing. Pick up something, meet cool people, see cool things. I remember like my one of the best, I would say coolest experiences. We walked into the Old Day Life store,
Hmm.
and the Old Day Life store was so ahead of its time. It was like it was a strip, and you couldn't touch anything. Everything was behind glass,
Hmm.
and everything had a price and a size, but it was set up like a museum.
Hmm.
And you would go to the I guess like where they would check you out, and you would be like, hey, I want this and a medium, blah blah, and they would tell you if they still had it. But we walked in and Nas was sitting on the bench, and we're like, oh shit, fucking Nas.
What? That's
Yeah.
crazy. What, like, did you even get to talk to him after that? What, do you even
No, it
see
was
what he
just
was
like I think
coughing?
I always had the whole like I don't want to bug them, so we
Yeah.
just kind of looked at him. It was me and my friends, and we're just like, damn, that's fucking Nas. That's
I mean, that's crazy. Yeah, yeah. Nas is iconic. I mean, he's the reason why I want the Orchard Street dunks. Like those are my grails right there because of him. But like, yeah, A Life here instead of A Life, they had a Rivington Club here.
yeah.
So like, I mean, I don't. So I'm talking to you like you've never been to New York, but over here, and it was the same thing. It was like everything behind glass doors, and I mean, I talked about it because I had one of the designers on A Life on here, and so like we were talking about the time I went in there. It was like the last time I went in there, and I got yelled at by the dude at the register, and because he was just like, you don't want that, you don't want that, and I was just like, no, I want that, and he would like not want to sell me a marker, and I was just like, okay.
Crazy. Just like a crank marker, he didn't want to
Yeah,
sell it.
yeah, he didn't want to sell it to me. Um, but that, I mean, that's wild. Like, like, did you ever do like campouts and stuff out there?
We did a couple campouts for Diamond, and then Black Friday sales. We would do them. Remember we did one at Crooks. We did one at Diamond. Nick Diamond would always release very limited shirts, so everybody would always camp out at his.
Mhm.
At Supreme, sometimes we would early, very very early on. I think the earliest you had to get there was like 9, 10 a.m. You would go. I remember Kermit.
Mhm.
That was one that I remember we walked in and they were all gone, and we're like, fuck. Yeah, I remember Kate Moss too, the one with the picture with the cigarette.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't nothing crazy. It was a couple hours. It wasn't as insane as it was a couple years ago, like when I would
Hmm.
see kids do a whole week for Supreme regular items.
I don't even get that now. Like over here, I went there recently, and I'm thinking like, oh yeah, I can just like walk in, and the one over here, and I went over there, and I see the line all the way down the block, and I'm like, what is going on? I thought like nobody messed with Supreme. Why is this line all the way down
And
the
it's like all
block?
the tourists, all the
Yeah,
tourists.
I mean it's wild. Like I don't like I cop Supreme online because it's very easy, but it's
Yeah,
like if I'm able to walk in, I don't want to spend the $15 just for a shirt, you know? Like
yeah.
it's crazy. When did you start reselling? Like when did you think like okay,
It
I
was. I don't think it was to make money. It was just
mhm,
always to get the new things because again,
right.
we didn't really have jobs,
Hmm.
especially during school. I had a job working with my uncles and like when we were off track, like not in
Hmm.
school.
Hmm.
But then when we were in school, we had to find ways to hustle to make money. So the way to we were like, oh, we need to get the next item. So let me get rid of these and get the new thing. So we never really had a thing of collecting too much because obviously we didn't have the money for it.
Hmm.
So we never it was just more of getting the next thing. It's just like I remember, for example, countdown packs. Countdown packs were a headache because they were every month.
Right.
But we were like, oh fuck, I want the threes. Fuck, I gotta sell this to get the threes. Oh fuck, the last one, which was the 11s and the 12s, and like Christmas time, we're like, fuck, now we gotta get this one.
Hmm.
So it was never to resell. I think the first item that I actually resold was like resold and made bread was up until Tyler started wearing camp hats and camp
Hmm.
hats became hot. I
Dude, I mean, you got to talk about that. Like, I don't know what I only seen what it was in New York about that, but like on Fairfax with Tyler, like right
That was
there.
crazy. I remember when
Yeah.
the most famous one I personally think myself is the leopard,
Hmm.
the olive black with the
Yeah.
leopard brim. I remember I walked in and I had one of my friends, Brian, with me lined up, and I told him like, "Yo, line up and I'll give you the hat if you line up and get it." I think they told us like four per person.
Uh-huh.
I remember I got eight total, so I kept my personal. I gave Brian his, and then I went to Riff, and I think Jeff, if I'm correct, gave me $150 a hat. These
Jesus.
hats were maybe $38, $40. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah,
but
34. I think they were
yeah,
like 34 at that time.
something like that. But yeah, he gave me like 150 a pop, and I was just like, gone. I got mine for free. My homie got his for free, and I made a ton of bread
Hmm.
at that moment. And I remember I think I purchased a pair of shoes, and I was like that.
You talked about your first job. What was that? What was that first job?
So my uncle, they had a well, they still have a company. It's like a
Uh,
welding company. So weld metal. So it was a pretty brutal job. It was from 5
yeah.
a.m. to 5 p.m. And I was maybe 14, 15, 16, up until like my senior year that I would go during vacation. But I was getting paid well. I was getting paid 500 a week.
Hmm.
500 a week at that age, it was insane.
Absolutely insane.
So during when I was not in school, I was lit because I was making money. I wasn't
Hmm.
going out or nothing. Obviously, not hanging out with my friends because I was just working. But then I would come to school and I would come with like a new wardrobe, blah blah. But during school, that's when it got hard because I would literally spend all my money on gear.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it was welding, it was being on top of rooftops, putting shit together that I still don't even know how I did it at that age.
Yeah, I was about to say 14. I
Yeah,
mean, that's straight up child labor at that
yeah,
point. But
yeah. But it was
but
with my uncles. So it was like I was like, "Yo, let's do it. I want to make some bread."
yeah, I mean that's wild. Like everybody on here is like, "Oh yeah, I mowed lawns." You're like the first person to be like, "Yeah, I was welding stuff on
Yeah.
roofs." That's crazy. Did you ever have any like other jobs, or was it like from there you were like, and then
From
you?
there, I started working at I after right after high school, I started working at Gap.
Hmm.
I worked at Gap very shortly. Then I ended up getting a night shift job at this like medicine company in Carson, I believe.
Hmm.
Um, so I was doing night shifts from 7 p.m. to 4 a.m. So I remember that's when I got into like reselling Supreme.
Hmm.
Was I would get off at 4 a.m., go home, take a nap, and then like around 9 I would wake up, hit up my homie Brian and be like, "Yo, let's go to Preem, line up with me and see if we can get some cool shit."
Hmm.
So that was cool, and I was getting paid well. I think at that time I was getting paid like $18 an hour,
Hmm.
which this was 2010, 2011. So I was getting paid 18 an hour, which was way over the minimum wage.
Yeah.
And again, I was just being spending it on gear. Uh, then after that, shout out to this job. This is one that's trippy. So after that, I had quit. What did I quit? I think I quit to essentially try to I was actually gonna become a sheriff. I wanted
Okay.
to I wanted to chase that, but that never just panned out at all.
Sheriff Chris.
Yeah.
You pull it up with the Supreme like
Yeah.
bag, and you're
Yeah.
like license and registration.
Oh yeah. So it was just something that I kind of got pushed into, and I did like a ton of the tests, but it wasn't for me. It wasn't
Mm,
something I wanted to do. So then after that, I think I took like a year off of not working. I was just hanging out with my friends, just literally
mhm,
hanging out with my friends, doing nothing, absolutely nothing,
mm,
playing basketball, eating, playing video games with them. Then I actually got a job through my homie Willie that actually works for me now. Trip
mhm.
out. He got me a job at Ann Taylor, which is a woman's essentially a department store almost.
Yeah.
It's like a clothing line. But
Mhm.
shout out that job because it showed me how to like talk to people. It showed
Oh,
me how to like because most of the time we're dealing with girls,
right.
with either moms, grandmas, or just girls. Just girls in
Mhm.
general. I was at the register, so my job was to help them, find the purchase and also like also convince them to get a credit card with the company.
Mhm.
So it taught me how to like talk to them. It taught me the skill on how to like be charismatic and stuff like that. Because if you could talk to a mom, you could talk to anybody, I would say.
How successful were you on getting that credit card?
All right. So I was very successful at it. That then I got hired at Riff, which was
Mhm.
a sneaker store. So that was like my in into this world.
Mhm.
The day that I quit without telling them, I just stopped going. I just showed up. But it was that Sunday that we had a meeting at 5 a.m. at Ann Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
But I picked essentially in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm picking Rip over you guys. I'd rather do sneaker shit than this.
Right.
Uh, my homie Willie texted me like at 6 in the morning. He's just like, yo, you asshole, you didn't show up. They were gonna give you an award for how much you've been killing it. Uh, and I didn't show up, and the rest, I mean, the rest is history, I would say.
They didn't mail it to you. They were just like, "Nah, we're
No,
not
no,
good."
I just never showed up. I just never went back.
That is crazy. You ghosted you ghosted the job when you were like you were about to get an award. That is amazing. But damn, you were killing it in there. What I mean, what was it like? Like how did that transition happen? Because like were you just like, all right, you just cut it off. You were just like, all right,
No,
I'm
so
good
Rip is
here.
already part of my life, obviously
Yeah.
growing up in high school and stuff like that. And my friend Manny was already working at Riff. And one day
Hmm.
he texted our group chat and he was like, hey, I need help, like anybody down. So I went once, and this is before I quit. So I went once because I had the day off,
Hmm.
and then they asked me to come again and then come again and come again. Luckily for me, all these days that I was coming in, I was off from my real job. So one day they were like, hey, we want you to come in full time as an intern first.
Hmm.
And I was just like, intern into sneakers or continue my job? And I was just like, you know what, I'm going to sneakers, fuck this. And yeah, that's how it happened. I became an intern. 6 months after that, I became store manager. And, yeah.
Damn, man. Like, are you just like gifted at getting to the next spot? Because like that's it.
I just actually like what I do, like I
Yeah.
enjoy like even like that Ann Taylor job. I was just like, you know what, I'm here from A to B. I can't complain. I know I have a couple hours before I get out, and I think that's my mentality. Like with
Hmm.
anything, like even with Syndicate, sometimes I'm like, all right, cool. I'm here till 7 or 8, 9, whatever, how long it is. But the day will end, even if I'm having a good or bad day. The day will end. So at Riff, I remember I was just going there and kill it, and luckily for me, I had I would say a lot of the people that were there didn't have like real life job experience.
Hmm.
So me having that real life job experience carried over into this essentially new industry at the moment.
Hmm.
So I was just knew how to talk to people. I knew how to like convince people to like do certain things, like, hey, consign this for this much, blah blah blah.
Hmm.
So I think just like having real life experience, even all the way down to my uncle's job, like where I was welding shit at
Yeah.
a age. So this job, standing here selling shoes, is nothing.
Uh-huh. You'd be like, you're just like thinking back to being on that roof, and you're like, I don't have to be in the sun. I can, like,
Yeah.
I mean, I've never worked at a sneaker store, but obviously I dealt with a lot of, like customer service at different spots, and it's that like that the you already see that's the thing, right? I think a lot of people think about it as like, oh, they already know what they want. You don't really have to put in the extra work to be like, oh, pay this much for it, because a lot of people that are going to buy sneakers are just already like, yeah, I'm coming here for Travis's. Like, I have the money, I saved it up. Like, you don't got to tell me, oh, do I need like, I
Yeah, no.
mean, like, but
Like they're on a mission. This
exactly. So like, what was your approach to it? Because I think like working at like, especially like this is your first like, sneaker job also, right? And it's not a Foot Locker. You're not like these are the set prices, Like what was that like?
Well, see, the thing with Riff, most of it was consignment,
Mm-hmm.
so we really couldn't give discounts
Mm-hmm.
just because the shoes didn't belong to us. So I mean, the number one excuse, which wasn't even an excuse, was like, hey, these shoes don't belong to us. If I give you a discount, I don't make my 15% cut, because Riff at that point had the best margin because it was 85-15. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
else was 80-20. So
Wow.
it was really hard to give discounts on certain things, but Riff was really good at putting out steals. So we
Mm-hmm.
would do buybacks at that time, but we didn't buy too much because we relied on consignment. But the
Mm-hmm.
buybacks were really good because it was able to give us good prices.
Yeah, that's wild. I never really understood that because like I never understood the profit margins around consignment because I mean I grew up going to flight club like almost every day and just looking at rare kicks, so like I see that a lot of like I'm picking up the same shoe for like 6 months, right?
Uh,
How does this store even make money off of this?
so for example, one thing that we were really good at there is we were good at not recycling, but like if somebody else came in with a better price, we would move. Like let's just say right now,
Hmm.
what just came out? Travis Olives.
Yeah.
let's just hypothetically say that you put one at $1,000.
Hmm.
You put one in $1,000, and then somebody comes in and says like, "Yo, I want to put mine for 850."
Hmm.
So we would always put the 850 first because like, "Yo, this is the cheaper one. Let's give the customer the better price, obviously." So that, but then then sometimes we would take it off the website. So it was really hard because then a customer, you would call and be like, "Hey, I did my shoe sell. Can I pick up a check?" And we'll be like, "No, it didn't sell. Somebody beat your price, and we have
Hmm.
one at 850. Would you like to match that or come down?" Some people would literally be like, "No, I'm gonna just keep it there." Some people would be like, "Yeah, put it down." So then we would fix it. But it was, I mean, luckily for us at RIP, we had a phone that we would hardly answer, but when we would, it was mostly people being like, "Yo, what happened to my shoes?"
Uh-huh.
But yeah, most of again, we were very transparent with everything and just be like, "Yo," but yeah, I mean, sometimes shoes would sit and the market would change. It wasn't changing too crazy because there was no StockX or no Goat
Hmm.
or nothing like that. But yeah, I mean, it was just all about staying on top of things, and I think that's just with anything you do, even now to buy, sell, trade, the whole different way of the industry. It's like you still have to stay on top of things.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the whole business side of sneakers, like aftermarket business side, it's totally just like I couldn't wrap my head around. Like, and I'm also just like one of those dudes. Like every time I buy a shoe, like I can't buy a sneaker to sell it. I can only just buy it to keep it.
Oh
Like
yeah,
yeah,
that's good. That's the thing. That means you're a fan of the whole industry, like.
yeah. I mean, yeah. It's always been hard. Like unless I don't like a shoe, like the last pair I bought that I immediately was just like, this is not for me was do you remember the LeBron 95s? The LeBron
Oh
MX
yeah, those are
95s?
horrible. Those are
They
terrible.
were mismatched. I got them. I won them on sneakers, and I opened the box. I was like, mm-mm. And I just closed it. I put it on Goat like immediately after.
Those are terrible, bro. Those are terrible.
I mean, as you're like a store manager and stuff like that, when was your decision to be like, all right, man, I think it's time.
Well, that didn't happen till like 2 years ago,
Right.
2021, because obviously Riff happened, then round two, and then obviously Syndicate. Syndicate was by accident, I would say. It was almost like a thing of like it was one of my homegirls that kind of like put the battery on my back. She just always told me like, "Oh, you're always gonna have the itch of what
Hmm.
if I could, what would happen if I would do it on my own?" Because I didn't want to open a store in reality. In
Hmm.
reality, I already had like a set job, good salary, and I still had another job, part-time job, at District One, just being their main buyer at that moment. So it was
Wow.
more.
Wait. So you were at round two and also
No,
side.
no, no.
No.
So I worked at round two, then I
Yeah.
quit round two, and then I got a consulting job that gave me a pretty good salary.
Mm.
And then, but that job wasn't very hard at all, so I had a lot of extra time. So then Danny and Simon, which are the owners of District One, reached out to
Mm.
me, and I was supposed to come back to round two, which is the funny thing,
Hmm.
to be a buyer, a part-time buyer essentially.
Hmm.
But then it was a nighttime call. Danny called me. He was just like, "Yo, like instead of going back to round two, would you mind coming to work for us?" And I was like, "All right, done. Cool, I'll do it." So I started the next Monday, and so I was just, I was in New York enjoying my life. I was literally my only job was to buy, so I had no worries. I didn't care. I didn't look at numbers. I didn't do
Hmm.
anything. I just had money to spend, and that's it. 12 to 7 at the buying counter. I'm done. Very easy. And then
That's
obviously I was
wild. Yeah, yeah. I seen that dude because I went to District One like a couple months ago. I don't know if you follow Frozen on TikTok. He's like the big SB guy. And
uh,
he took me there
uh-huh.
recently, and I went there and I saw the dude that's in all the District One videos now. He's there just buying sneakers,
Oh yeah,
and I
fucking
forgot.
John.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was just like weird. Like it was just wild. Like people were there. It felt like a different crowd. It didn't feel like a bunch of tourists just looking at sneakers. It was like it felt more of like, oh, we here to buy sneakers. Like, like these guys give steals. Like we're here to
How they
like,
do.
yeah.
I would say they're probably the best store in New York City right now.
For
Yeah.
sure, for sure. I mean, that was like a different side of consignment that I've ever, or different side of reselling that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I mean, shout out to them. Hopefully I get somebody on here too. But it was just like it was like different. It was more of like a world. awakening because I thought it was. I feel like resell gets such like I mean this has been had such a big bad rap about it,
Yeah.
you know, and we're always talking about like I mean there's tons of content creators talking about how you know resellers are not for the culture. They've never been fans of sneakers. Like you know they're only in it for the money, and you know like stores like yours and District One have like changed that and turn and like in that to me at least, you know. Oh snap!
All right. No, yeah. I just think at the end of the day, like we're all just big fans of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it's for me, it's just if Syndicate continues doing what we're doing right now, I don't even like to everybody's just like, oh, you guys are gonna blow up one day. And I'm just like, bro, as long as it's consistent, people are getting shoes, people are happy, we're getting product in, that's all that matters to me. You know, I don't really I'm just at the end of the day, I work in my closet. That's the way I say it. Yeah.
I mean, it's a dope closet, is
Yeah.
what I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were talking about you know consulting and
Yeah. So
District One, yeah.
yeah, so then I was doing that, and then my homegirl literally was just like, hey, like because Danny was already in my ear, which is my business partner.
Mm-hmm.
He was already in my ear about like opening a store, and I was just kind of like, no, you know, I'm really enjoying my life right now, you know, like I don't know if I want to make a drastic change right now. And then we would always go to dinner and stuff, and she would just be like, hey, you know, you're just so, because I would tell her, I'm like, oh, I don't know, I feel like I'm letting somebody down by telling them no, blah blah
Mm-hmm.
blah. um and then she was just like, hey, you know, you're just always gonna have that itch of like what if. And I was just like, you know what, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
And from there it was just we decided to open a store.
That I mean, did that spot call you, or was it just like this is like you found like did you tour a bunch of spots, or was it just like the
Yeah,
spot you had in mind?
at first we checked out the arts district, which is not too far from us,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't have plumbing, so we had to put in our own toilet, which was annoying. So I was just like, all right, now this is off. And then we found Chinatown. In Chinatown, we got like a really good price, and it had a lot of space. Obviously, now we need way more space. We're still
Yeah.
growing, but it just worked out perfectly. We installed the gates and all that stuff. We're essentially doing everything from scratch, like designing the case, designing the counter, getting one of our good friends to do the walls, you know,
Mhm.
finding out what frames we're gonna put up. You know, it was cool because it was a blank canvas that we had, and then you know now it's still growing to this day.
No, yeah. I mean, what made you guys be like, you know what, we should also have a social media presence beyond just like we're selling, you know?
So pandemic happened, and I remember I offered round two. I'm like, hey, us right here in New York City, our staff. I'm like, we have a lot of young kids.
Hmm.
They're great, you know, like Kelly, Kobe. I mean, everybody, you know, like they were young, they were energetic. TikTok was just coming in.
Hmm.
I remember I told them, I'm like, hey, like TikTok, bro, like TikTok, like we gotta do TikTok because I already remembered that people were such fans of the round two show, but
Yeah.
that had ended. So I was just like, we still have to find a way to get our presence out.
Hmm.
They were just like, no, we send them a couple that we did, and they were just like, no, I don't know, it's not our thing, blah blah blah. And I'm like, you know what, you're my boss, so if you tell me no, no, pretty simple. Uh, so when Syndicate happened, I pretty much was like, all right, cool, we gotta do YouTube, we gotta do TikTok, we gotta do Reels, you know, we gotta do everything, you know, like you have to put in effort, you have to have fun with it. And
Hmm.
you have to make people feel involved because like for you now, like let's say you're watching the YouTube, you're watching the TikToks. Now when you come out to LA and you come to Syndicate, you're gonna be like, oh, I know you, I see you, I see you. And our goal is to whatever we're putting out, when you come to continue putting that out, where the last thing I want to hear is if you come and you're like, oh, they're so different from fucking the internet to real life. But
Yeah.
luckily, we haven't had that problem
Hmm.
because we're just literally regular. Like I remember some girl came in and she was just like a big fan, and she was just like, hey, like you guys are exactly the same. And I was just like, yeah, like what do you expect? You know, like
Yeah, yeah.
you get to show, you know, like. But yeah, no, I mean, I think TikTok, Reels, social media, and everything is such an important thing, and it just kind of allows us to show people what we're about and kind of put, like, you know, like give people like a tour of the store, what's going on in the store. People always want to feel involved, and people
Yeah.
always want to feel of a community, and if they can feel part of something, that's all that's like that means the world to me, you know.
Yeah, I mean that's absolutely facts. I think that a lot of the, I mean, ever since the round two show, like, you know, a lot of other stores follow that same logic. Like they just took that template and just put it onto their store
Yeah.
for their videos, you know. And I feel like, you know, you guys make it more personal. Like, um, I mean, the push up joint. That's the one I think about off the bat, where you was trying to do the push. It was like whoever can do the most push ups gets this. I forgot what shoe it was.
We always do it. It's called Syndicate. So I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
I think with Syndicate, it's just I think it's just a open book about my life. You know, that's how I like to put it. So anything you go in there resembles something. You know, it's a shirt would make like I have a story of like, yo, I remember this is why I made this shirt. Blah blah blah. With Cindy Fit, I've always been like huge on fitness and taking care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's always like a big thing for me, and it's not about like getting cut up or lifting the most weight. It's just like I feel like a morning run is like coffee for me. It's just like I feel better when I wake up and feel sweat or whatever. So I was just like, you know what, we're gonna do this whole thing, we're gonna give away free shoes for push-ups. And then again, it's shout out to the community. So people, like, let's say you come in with 10 shoes, we take 9 out of the 10. The 10 is maybe a beater or maybe something like a panda dunk or something small, and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, you know what, you did well on the cash out, here you go, give these away for push-ups. So like most of the time it's not us taking L's, some of the time it is, and it's just more like for marketing.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it's the community blessing the community, and again, it's just like we're over here taking all the credit, but in reality it's just a giant green circle of like just movement.
Mm-hmm. What made you want to just keep building a community around the store and around you?
Just having more friends.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm always alone, so having people around to socialize at all times, I think that's very important.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I always tell people, I'm like, I feel like Syndicate is like the underdog store right now. So kids that sometimes if you don't feel accepted at certain stores or at certain places, like you come into Syndicate and like almost like there's like literally like high school kids that come in there, and I'm there talking to them about what I'm gonna release and what I'm gonna do and blah blah blah, and you could see it in their face that they're all hyped up and they feel welcomed.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, that's important, because again, me growing up, sometimes I would go to Fairfax to certain stores and I would feel unwelcomed.
Oh yeah. I
You
mean,
know?
you know the stories of
Yeah,
Supreme back in the day. Like I've
yeah,
heard
but
nothing but craziness in there.
and that's why Diamond was so big for us, and even the hundreds, Diamond and the hundreds, but especially Diamond,
Mm-hmm.
they would always, hey, what's up, guys? Let us know if you need anything, blah blah blah. Just like you got to think about it. Most of the people that go to these stores put on an outfit to be noticed at these stores.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine going to the stores and you're wearing the coolest kicks in the world and nobody cares. And again, that's like I would say some people would be like, "Oh, it's a stupid mentality," but like you really are a part of something. You
Yeah.
feel a part of something. So
You want to
I
be
remember
seen. You
you want to be
people want to be
seen. Yeah,
seen.
you,
Yeah.
you you buy these things because you're not like naturally into them, but you're like, yo, like this is special to me, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
So I always tell people at the store, I'm like, yo, compliment the people's shoes if you like them. Don't lie to them, but just be like, yo, nice kicks, because that
Uh-huh.
you know that might make that guy have a bad day. Boom, ego boost. He's gonna have the best day of his life.
Yeah, I mean, I, that nothing beats like being stopped on the street for your kicks, or like even just like a shirt. Because like there was the other day, it was like the other day I was wearing a Supreme shirt, and dude was like, "Yo, man, nice shirt," and I was just like, "Yo, thank you, man." Like that appreciation goes, you know, back and forth, and it creates a just like a bonding, like a short bonding moment. I'm not telling you like, oh, this guy's gonna like this person's gonna be the best man at your wedding, but like,
Yeah.
you
No,
know,
yeah,
like
no.
you know,
Type
yeah.
deal. No, I remember leaving 2 days ago when I went to go pick up the Spider-Man tees from our company that we do it through. I put one on and I was putting gas, and random guy was just like, "Yo, I love your tee, bro." Blah blah blah. And in my head, I'm like, "All right, cool. This tee's gonna be a good tee, because like this random guy at a gas station that doesn't look like he's into shoes, like
Mhm.
my shirt.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm gonna need to see a picture of that shirt. I'm very curious because you know you talked about your roadmap to where you are now, but like, where did you get this like this uh where did you get your idea of hustle? Like, because I feel like you just been hustling even with the break.
Um, I think it's just always, wanting to do fun shit. I travel a lot. I like having cool clothes. I like having cool shoes. I like having a good time. Most importantly, so I just always feel like, oh, like how I said, like how can I do this for way cheaper? Like how
Mm-hmm.
can I get this for free essentially, or how can I hustle? So it's always that hustle mentality of like, how can I go to? I just recently went to Barcelona. I'm like, yo, what can I sell to
Mm-hmm.
make this trip free where I don't spend my hard-earned money on this trip? So it's just always like having that it's just a hustler mentality where you're just like, oh, I want something, I want new kicks, all these shoes are coming out, blah blah blah. Like it's always just, I think I'm just a fan of this like industry, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
just like a junkie and nerd about it. Like I'm like, oh, I want to know why they did this. I want to know why this is placed here. I want, like, even with movies or even fitness or anything, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm a nerd about, if I'm into something, I'm a nerd. I'm not just like riding waves or like, oh shit, this is cool right now, let me get on it. It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
no, it's just like, I'll fuck with it if I fuck with it, and if I don't, I don't. But if I fuck with it, I'm gonna learn like, okay, this is why this is here. This is here. Like, I hate hearing people be like, "Yo, like, can you tell me about something about this shoe?" And they'll be like, "I don't fucking know. I don't know. I didn't even know these shoes existed." Like I'm just
Yeah.
like, but you're wearing sneakers. Like that's it's such a bad look. I would say, but again, it just shows you who's into it for capitalization on streetwear culture,
Mm-hmm.
or who's into it because they actually love it.
Yeah, the when you see somebody's passionate about something, like it brings you more into wanting to know more about it. And I always think, I like doing this podcast and stuff. I've never been like, oh, I know this. I'm always been like, oh, tell me more, because knowledge is power, knowledge is key, and when you're into something like and passionate like sneakers or streetwear and stuff like that, like when somebody tells me something new, I'm always like, wow. Like I'd rather be wowed than being like not an interest like interested or like over it, because then, I mean, I said this on like Twitter before, but like if somebody tells you, like if somebody's able to change your mind on something that you think you're passionate about, then maybe you weren't passionate about it in the first place. And that's, I
No,
mean, yeah, and that's okay to admit as well. Like it's fine. Like people fall out of love with a lot of stuff, but like don't force yourself to fall back in love with it. If it's over, it's over.
No, yeah, exactly. Trends come and go.
Yeah.
Stuff comes and go, but obviously there's always nostalgia.
Hmm.
But I always tell people, I'm like, at the end, I'm still a student of the game. I own my own store, but I still got a lot to learn. Like I've have grails, blah blah blah, but I'm still a student. Like we recently did our podcast with Croatian style,
Hmm.
and this guy's a legend in the game.
Legend. Yeah.
Like, and for him to do that with us and show that we're essentially competitors at Project Blitz and Syndicate, but
Hmm.
that we know that we fuck with each other. It's just like, that just shows you that, again, we have a love for this, for everything we do. Like we have a mutual respect and we love what we do. Like, I mean, Dre's been doing it for like fuck almost 30 years. Like,
Yeah. I mean, shoot, he was on the forums putting stuff up, and I was like following him from there to now. Like it's just crazy. Like it just hearing that name again. I mean, it's like you made me think about B5353. I don't know if you remember
I
B5353,
don't.
but
What was that?
he's one of the like he was one of the dudes that used to leak all the SBs, but like
Uh,
the rare stuff. Like he's the one that, I think he was one of the first couple people that leaked the Freddy Cougars. But he had a personal pair of the Iron Maiden SBs, and I was like in love with those joints from the jump from there.
that's a grail right there.
That's a grill. Like it's like, I think that's a sample, right? They
Yeah,
never made a ton of.
no, no.
Are you sample size?
No, I'm a 10 and a half.
You
Yeah.
gotta cut off some toes to get in there,
Yeah.
man.
I honestly, it's funny. I had a Freddy Krueger. I had a size 10 actually,
Mhm.
and I sold it at the opening of the Chicago store of round two, and I sold it for, guess what, $4,000.
Wow.
Yeah, but
That
again, that they hadn't jumped yet. That was
Yeah.
market, but then now, like, I could have easily got like 20 bands now.
No, yeah, I mean, the homie of the pod, Sacred Mortal, he has like four pairs of them things, and he's just like that kid in like, I think he said it's either 4 years or 2 years. I think it's like 4 years or 2 years. He jumped and has like all this rare stuff like immediately, like it's
Yeah,
just wild.
it's just being ahead of the curve. No one,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that kid is definitely ahead of the curve. I don't even know how he's able to get that. He got the eBay dunks in the eBay special box.
The case.
Yeah.
crazy. That's a crazy shoe, you know.
Yeah, and he also has signed Tinker Hatfield mags like in the case with the
Crazy
lights and stuff. It's
madness.
madness. Like I don't know how people get to that status. But shoot, man. I mean, listen, we're going towards the end of the podcast. I also have an ending question for you. You know, I want you to just think about that time you were about to cop the Reese Forbes, right? And now you have the box in your hand as your younger self has the box in his hands, and you're in a time machine. You go all the way back in time. You stand up, and you're you now behind yourself, opening that box. What would you tell your younger self as
And
you open
nothing's
that
gonna
box?
change.
You said nothing's gonna change.
Nothing's gonna change with whatever advice I tell myself,
Yeah,
or
nothing's gonna change. You're just
nothing's gonna
talking to
change.
yourself.
Just keep doing you. That's
Hmm.
literally there's nothing. There's like I always tell is I have a lot of younger peers that always ask me for advice. I always tell them the same thing. I'm like, bro, do what you want. You know, make that mistake. You know, especially if you're young, I think you're okay to make mistakes. You
Hmm.
trial and error. You know, you never know. Syndicate. I feel like Syndicate's not the end for me. I feel like there's still more to evolve, more things for me to do. Maybe take a further step. I don't know what that is yet, but I still know that. I always tell people, I'm like, yo, just, you know, whatever you want to do, put your head into it, you know, get passionate about something. Don't think like, oh, what is this person gonna think of me? You know, just if you're passionate about something, just go for it. And even if it is a mistake, who cares? You know, just fucking do it. You know,
Hmm.
that's what I tell people. I'm just like, I feel like everything I have done is just me kind of like stumbling into it, and you know, it's worked out okay for me. I have turned down some things where I'm just like, fuck, like I fucked up on this, or like I've done it, like I should have done this, you know. But again, you live and you learn, and I still think like, even me, I'm 31 now. I feel like I'm still very young, and I still don't feel like, all right, cool. Like I still feel like everything is a stepping stone to the next thing. So
Hmm.
I always just tell, if I would tell my younger self, it's just like, yo, if you're gonna make a mistake, fucking do it now, you know.
Yeah, yeah, perfectly said. I mean, Chris, you definitely put. I'm sure anybody listening is definitely gonna get fired up and do something because of that. Because like you know, your hustle is and your passion is just you're pushing right through this podcast. Like I felt it from beginning to end, man. It was great time, great having you on.
Yeah, anytime, bro. Anytime. And then anybody wants to hit me up, advise, you know, just talk, hit me up. My Instagram is at the start of the pod. Hit me up.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And for everybody out there, you know what we say each week: wear your kicks. Peace.
Peace. Have a good one.